Thank you, Samantha. Please come through.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Zimbali Lodge. A very warm welcome to all our delegates. My name is Samantha Davidson. I'm the Senior Sales Administrator within the Zimbali Lodge. They've requested me to just give you a brief discussion on the occupational health and safety, the evacuation procedures, and how it actually branches out. I'll try not to be too long. It'll just be a brief discussion, won't bore with too many facts. Zimbali Lodge have established a health and safety committee. Our CEO is Nick Dixon. He's now known as the 16.1. He's now nominated our general manager, being our 16.1, to be our to establish a committee within Zimbali. The occupational health and safety is to ensure that everything is above board, and any guest or any colleague that works here is not in detriment to themselves. The 16.2 therefore nominates, as I mentioned, a health and safety representatives. From there, a vote ballot is cast to establish a chairperson who then will oversee the multifacets of within the health and safety. I have been nominated as the chairperson of the Health and Safety Committee within the Zimbali Lodge. As the chairperson, I've established my apologies, my nerves. I oversee the properties fulfilling its quota of health and safety. From there, we have our first aiders, our fire evacuation team, and also our emergency evacuation team. All of these members have done the necessary courses in order to assist anybody, first aid, any emergency evacuation. So anyone that stays and accommodates with ourselves is reassured from a health and safety perspective. Just to let you know, we have got various evacuation sites. Where you are seated now, your evacuation site would be by our main staircase through the main door. There's a big assembly sign. Any area that you're in is demarcated accordingly for evacuation, for emergency, for fire. Where you would get to emergency gathering, and that would be our assembly point. Sorry, I know you've all been here for a while. Just in case you don't know where the ladies and gents are, it's also at the main staircase. If you're walking through, gents are on your left, ladies are on your right. And then the biggest thing that we're all dreading and facing is load shedding. When you're at Zimbali Lodge, there's no need to worry about load shedding. We do have a generator which clicks in seconds as the power goes out. So you stay with us at Zimbali Lodge, you'll never be in the dark. That's the gist of the health and safety. I thank you for the time that you've given me just to address all of yous. And once again, a very warm welcome to everybody here with us. And have a lovely weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Many thanks, Samantha. Just small house rules. May I ask you please to switch off your cell phone or to put it on silence. Whatever you do, it may not ring. This event is recorded. Thank you. When last, ladies and gentlemen, did you go stargazing? When did you last go stargazing? I see. Well, let me share with you a story. Two reputable scientists, Thandeka Mbete and Tami Khumalo, decided to go stargazing, determined to view the Milky Way in its splendor. They pitched the tent under the stars and fall asleep after one glass of wine, as most scientists do. Intent on showing his best side, Utami Kumalo places a chocolate near a very tense Tandeka's pillow with the hope she will fall asleep with ease. Later, in the middle of the night, she says in a cool tone, Kumalo, look up into the sky. What do you see? With the most romantic tone he could master, he says, I see an illuminated crescent moon, typical in the month of August. 50 meters an hour and 1 billion star Milky Way. Says a steel cool Tandeka. And what did you deduce from that? Kumalo replies, that means, Siswam, spring is upon us, and the earth has passed through the heart of the stream of dust left by Comet Swift Tuttle. Tandeka responds, Kanjani Kumalo, I see the tent is no more. And I wonder how you see the things which are not visible to the human eye. Ladies and gentlemen, all I can say, Kumalo's romantic evening fell flat thereafter. I wish to invite the next speaker, the one and only Director General of the Department of Higher Education and Training. But before I do so, allow me to share the credentials of this high-performance driver. He has a total of 35 years of experience at different spheres of government and has acquired significant expertise in corporate governance, in state-owned public enterprises, finance management, asset management, the list goes on. He's grounded in human capital development training, and he's a great believer in lifelong learning. Dr. Sishi has an in-depth experience in the labor market intelligence, quality assurance, public policy program. He concluded planning and infrastructure assessment, public examinations, policy and strategy, large-scale reforms, social cohesion, and international engagements. He has vast experience in working with boards, board committees. Dr. Sishi has been responsible for the oversight of monitoring and evaluation in his previous life as a Deputy Director General for the department. He holds a Doctor of Philosophy, acquired from the University of Johannesburg. He has achieved numerous awards, including the Best Head of Department of the Year in KwaZulu-Natal for excellence in service delivery. He has authored and published several books, a history book called From Apartheid to Democracy. He is president of the Patrick Ambrose Foundation for Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Sishi.
I'm very happy that this is adjustable. Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Bonginkosi Emmanuel Nzimande. our distinguished guests of honor, Professor Sibusiso Bengu, the chairpersons of councils and vice chancellors present, the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program Steering Committee members present, the chief executive officers of entities present, all senior managers of our departments, particularly deputy directors general, are here with us today. And that includes the chief executives of some public entities in the Department of Higher Education and Training and the sector at large. It's my singular honor and privilege to welcome you all to this auspicious event. We are delighted that the higher education fraternity have come in numbers to pay tribute to a remarkable and distinguished leader, Professor Bengu. He's not alone today, he's with his family, and we are deeply honored to have you today. Thank you. We are appreciative that your family members supported and endorsed our minister's initiative to acknowledge your contribution to the sector. A review of Professor Bengu's journey reveals that the legend here before us was a scholar par excellence. It is self-evident that his scholarly inclination was formulated much earlier, and as early as 1952, when he was only 18 years of age and embarked on a career in teaching. It's remarkable that he acquired a new qualification every decade, and it seems until he was appointed the Vice Chancellor of the University of Fort Hare and later the first Minister of Education in the democratic South Africa. His qualifications enabled him to work anywhere in the world, including Germany. We are eternally grateful that he assumed what was one of the most onerous tasks to help the recovery of an education system that was brutalized by apartheid forces and policies. We thank you, Professor Bengu. We thank your support system and the entire family, particularly your wife who's here with us today, for embracing the higher education portfolio and constructing the foundation many of us now stand on firmly. We are mindful that without your tenacity and multiple sacrifices and direction, our subjugation before apartheid architects may have been more protracted. So we thank you, Professor Bengu, for your role in the liberation of our people and for your leadership of education and the legacy that you've left of a non-racial, single, non-sexist Department of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program was conceptualized in 2019 when government resolved to decisively redress the inequalities that have impacted on the development and sustainability of the historically disadvantaged institutions and to contribute to their further development as strong universities in a diversified system. The Sibusiso Bengu's development program encapsulates our vision to transform the sector into a single coordinated post-school education and training system, providing means to expand access and success, improve the quality and increase the diversity of provision. The department has established several strategies to assist the institutions of higher learning to realize this vision through the provision of earmark grants. A particularly important area of focus regarding expanding access and success is the production of scarce and critical skills needed for South Africa's economic development. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached that point where, in the words of Martin Luther, we refuse to become, or we refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunities of this nation. We are now more than ever energized with the fierce energy. No tranquilizing drug of gradualism will slow down our intentions to ensure that historically disadvantaged institutions deliver on an enriched academic enterprise that enables every graduate to realize his or her potential. Our appreciation goes to the National Steering Committee, the chairpersons of council and vice chancellors of our universities, for your hard work in ensuring that this program assumes the requisite stature in all our institutions. Our appreciation goes to all involved in the implementation of this program in their various roles, knowledge systems, and restoring the dignity of the African child so that every African child can hear that African languages can cognitively articulate scientific and technological knowledge. We hope that the historically disadvantaged institutions are creative, discursive spaces for innovative ideas and diverse knowledge systems to which South Africans relate. In short, ladies and gentlemen, Program Director, Honorable Minister, and in particular, our distinguished guests, that our vice chancellors and chairs of councils are engaged in institutions which will emulate and enrich the scholarly values upheld by the first, and I repeat, the first Minister of Higher Education for the benefit of generations to come. Professor Bengu, our gratitude cannot be contained in words. We hope that this occasion reflects the scope of our appreciation. I thank you, Program Director.
Many thanks, DG. I'd now like to invite Sis Bongi, the daughter of Professor Bengu, to come through and present her address on behalf of her father.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. It's a great honor and privilege to be in your presence. I'm especially honored for the presence of our Honorable Minister, the Director General, and representatives from all universities. It is a real pleasure to be speaking on behalf of my father. Unfortunately, he is not well. But before I start, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Alfred Makato and Fundiswa for their outstanding dedication to this program. I am very honored I am very honored that the Minister of Higher Education and Science and Innovation, Dr. Blade Nzimande, has chosen to name what was known as the Historically Disadvantaged Institutions Development Program after me. It is a combination of efforts of various stakeholders in the post-school education and training system which included the vice chancellors and senior management teams of all designated universities, as well as departmental officials and the student leadership. This education program will define a new future for our historically disadvantaged institutions, as it marks a turning point for the continuous advancement in teaching, learning, and research, community engagement, and local government, infrastructure, and student life. The development program articulates a clear identity for our universities linked to their roles as anchor institutions. These are important issues which call for a concerted sectoral effort. They do not only demand sectoral effort, but demand an individual, institutional commitment from the implementers and beneficiaries alike. This program and the funding to it should be used in a specific way by our institutions and must be valued as an important resource by our institution. I think this is most crucial. I therefore congratulate our AHDs on giving birth to such an important development trajectory and setting high standards of development and identity for our institutions. I plead with all of you not to forget the values and ideals required for a transformed education system that will serve all people in South Africa and across the globe. The work will require the expansion of collective expertise and the commitment of all role players. It will serve all people in South Africa and across the globe. I am very confident that if we focus our efforts and grow the cultures of our institutions upon these transformational values, we will be on our way to shaping the ideal South African higher education system which we long for, and one that we will be proud of. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can do better. Thank you so much, Sis Bongile. There's a sister of yours that I know very well. She's not here. But it's unbelievable how similar you look. It's amazing how similar you sound. And you're all just so beautiful in every respect. Along the theme of Martin Luther King, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted on our Constitution. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out that true meaning of its principles. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all our men and women at our institutions of higher learning are treated equal. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in inviting the Vice Chancellor of Sefako Makgatho Health Sciences University, representing the institutions, historically disadvantaged institutions. Can I see you, Prof? To come through and present his address. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you very much, DDG. The Honorable Minister of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Blade Nzimande, our distinguished guest of honor, Professor Sibusiso Bengu, represented by family today, and of course our first Minister of Education in a democratic South Africa, our Director General in the department, Dr. Nkosinati Sishi, DDGs and other senior members from the Department of Higher Education and Training, chairs of university councils present here today, vice chancellors, deputy vice chancellors and other senior managers from universities who are present, program director, distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great honor and privilege to address you on behalf of vice chancellors of historically disadvantaged institutions, commonly known as HDIs. Today marks a very important day in the history of higher education sector in South Africa, as we partner in the launch of the Sibusiso Bengu development program, a program that recognizes and seeks to address years of gross injustice and inequality to this subsector of our higher education system. The system of higher education, as contemplated in our legislative and regulatory frameworks, is for all our universities to play a role in the advancement of human civilization and endeavor. Such a system should allow all our universities to contribute based on their disciplinary and research strengths to the discovery of new knowledge and resolution of all the debilitating challenges facing South Africa, our continent, and the world. To this end, all our universities today must be spaces where the brightest minds of our young and old citizens, with the guidance of their professors, are immersed in critical thinking and dedicated to the search and discovery of knowledge, are front runners and creators of new knowledge through research and innovation aimed at solving national and global challenges. The graduates from all our universities must have the skills, values, and temperament that makes them ready for the job market. They must be entrepreneurial, with the ability to anticipate future challenges and to respond decisively to such challenges, informed by the quality of training that they would have received from our universities. Our HDIs, as has been already described earlier, are a colonial legacy that were bequeathed with a host of challenges due to the deliberate and academic architectural construct of the apartheid regime that placed HDIs at the periphery. Many of these challenges have continued to plague our sector to date. Such discrimination and inequality manifested itself in various ways, including in the allocation of resources and the development of higher education institutions. The first minister in democratic South Africa, who is present in our midst, as represented by the family, led a process of transformation for higher education by championing the 3 steering instruments for the transformation of our sector. These are policy, funding, and quality assurance. The Sibusiso Bengu Development Program, which started as the Historically Disadvantaged Institutions Development Grant, has truly been an important intervention in our institutions, without which the current transformation witnessed in these institutions would not have been seen and visible. This development grant has assisted universities by providing funding to resolve institutional specific challenges, a backlog of maintenance, infrastructure, maintenance, neglect and delay and decay, and serving as a catalyst for effective and efficient functioning in key academic and operational administrative functions. In my career as Vice Chancellor, I've been in the inimitable position of being at the helm of 2 HDIs. first at the University of Venda for 2 terms from 2008 to 2018, and more recently from 2020 as the Vice Chancellor for Sefako Mahato Health Sciences University. And may I add to all my colleagues here, the only dedicated health sciences university in the Southern African region and one of the very few globally. Minister, if you allow me, I would like to just give examples of how this program has had a very positive impact in the manner that we run institutions. And if you allow me, colleagues, I would largely use examples from the University of Venda and Sefako Mahato because I understand them very well. But I'm sure the examples I give will be reflective of the HDI institutions in general. During my tenure as Vice Chancellor at both Univen and SMU, this fund has critically changed the operating landscape of these institutions, including, among others, and I'm just going to give you a few examples. Establishment of centers for higher education, teaching and learning. In some universities, we call them centers for university teaching and learning, with funding made available to appoint qualified academic practitioners with requisite skills and experience. A second example is reviews and development of program qualification mix in line with the Minister's call for a differentiated higher education sector, with universities playing to their strengths and not attempting to be clones of other institutions. A third example is establishment of grant management offices to ensure that the Sibusiso Bengu development program is uncompromising in the manner that the projects are managed, and then we can account for every single cent that the department gives to our institutions. A fourth example is the review of the viability and sustainability of program offerings, and thereafter canning those that are not viable and appropriately recalculating others as the market may demand. A fifth example is capacity in critical administrative and operational divisions to increase efficiency and productivity, including the development and embedding of systems to improve operational efficiencies and effectiveness at these institutions. For example, with a dramatic increase in funding from the Infrastructure Efficiency Grant, HDI has appointed skilled professionals with engineering, quantity surveying, project management, and other qualifications within the built environment to provide the necessary oversight for mega projects funded through the IEG grants. And the list goes on, but I just thought I'll pick those few. The HDI grant, now appropriately and justifiably renamed the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program, has had and continues to have a massive positive catalytic impact on our HDIs, infusing much needed additional human resource capacity, better strategic planning capabilities, increased institutional operational efficiencies, and improved management oversight, resulting in better managed universities that are fit for purpose and responsive to the demands of the modern higher education sector, both locally and globally. At Univen and at SMU, this is evidenced by our ability to submit DHET compliance reports on time, achievement of clean audits, increased research and postgraduate student outputs, attraction of good quality academics and researchers, internationalization of our programs, increased third stream income targets, and in the case of Univen, dramatically improving its rankings within the South African public universities. Coming to SMU, this program made immense impact at a very critical time, immediately following the unbundling and demerger from the University of Limpopo. It was this program, the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program, and the associated funding that supported the university in the re-engineering of its business processes across all businesses and academic units. As SMU was a new standalone university, there was a great need to review the governance systems, including the academic rules of schools and the reconfiguration of the academic programs committees. This program funded the processes leading to the development of a new business model of the university to ensure that it becomes financially sustainable in the long run. There were other strategic infrastructure projects that were made possible, including the African Bioimaging Facility, which as a sector you'll soon be hearing about in greater detail, occupational health and safety audits, and the bulk water system contribution to the city of Tshwane. SMU feels greatly honored to have been chosen by DHET to be the home of the program management for the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program, and we have entered into a memorandum of agreement with the department in this regard. It is a responsibility, Minister, that we accept with great humility and appreciation, and one that we will carry out with great pride. And Dr. Ntambeleni, this might just be one of the reasons that I find myself on the podium speaking on behalf of the HDIs. During a recent Sibusiso Bengu Development Program oversight by DHET, led by the DDG, Dr. Sotrikwa, we had an important discussion regarding the conversion of collaborative development teams, the CDTs, contained in the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program framework into communities of practice, the COPs. This is a welcome development, considering that we already have an established tradition of COPs in academia, particularly within USAF, what we previously called HISA. In this terrain, the COPs have no room for conceptual fuzziness, and the higher education landscape is a practice of being peer-driven. The notion of COPs will therefore ensure that we interact regularly as HDIs and share best practice. The COPs are underpinned by the centrality of knowledge sharing and transfer. It is therefore my considered opinion that the COPs, as contemplated in the revised Sibusiso Bengu Development Program framework, will enhance holistic performance of our institutions and across our sector. We are honored to be participants and partners in a program that is associated with Professor Bengu. And I think our DDG has given a very good journey and story about why it is really a pride for us to be associated with this great professor. It is our commitment that we will honor the legacy of Prof. Bengu through the program by appropriately branding all our activities and acknowledging his contribution to the transformation of higher education in South Africa. Despite the many challenges facing HDIs, the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program enables us to reimagine and renew ourselves, serving as a catalyst that analyzes our development plans to translate into quality and excellence in our institutions. We appreciate the fact that the Department of Higher Education and Training has made these resources available, Minister, notwithstanding a struggling economy and competing demands on the national fiscus. Now, finally, to our Minister, because Minister, we never have enough time to appreciate what you do for us. Finally, to our Minister, Honorable Dr. Blade Nzimande. I'm not sure we get enough opportunities to sincerely thank and honor you for the steadfast belief and conviction in our higher education sector, and in particular, the requisite laser-focused attention you have given to HDIs to transform into highly efficient, well-resourced universities of choice. And I think when the DDG was at SMU, this is precisely what we were talking about, Minister. Many of our HDIs have continued to transform and become bastions of quality education because of your commitment to the transformation of the sector. I should also take advantage of the occasion to indicate that many of us may have forgotten that you are actually and actively involved in the transformation of education in South Africa for over 4 decades. We recall with fond memories the pivotal role you played in the early 90s as one of the university employees attached to one of the most vibrant education policy units in our country. Minister, the contribution you made in the education policy debates leading to 1994 will forever remain very clear to many of us. I should also remind colleagues that you were, if my memory serves me right, the first chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Education. And I think some of these other chair people could learn something from you, Chairperson. In 1994, again, ensuring that the policy aspirations you fought for so gallantly are codified in the higher education legislative and regulatory frameworks. As we celebrate the relaunch of yet another important intervention you conceived and spearheaded to address decades of inequality in our system, we should all pause and say to you, Minister, thank you. You really played a crucial role at crucial moments during the development and consolidation of our higher education system. On behalf of the Vice Chancellors, whose universities are beneficiaries of the Sibusiso Development Program, we wish to thank you for your foresight, for your leadership, for your unwavering commitment and deep sense of social justice, evident in your quest for the development of our universities in South Africa. Program Director, I want to thank you very much, and colleagues, thank you very much.
Many thanks, Professor Mbati. I think your peers could not have selected a more eloquent delivery. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, there's one omission. I forgot to acknowledge a very important person in this room who, like many others, are graduates from Ndlagezwa High School. In fact, we have quite a few. I will save them on this occasion, but I must acknowledge the presence of Mrs. Nzimande, who has joined us to honor our Professor Bengu, who was in fact once her headmaster. You've noticed I'm trying to keep time, and that is because we cannot detain Professor Bengu for far too long. But I will now ask our DG, Nkosinati Sishi, to please introduce our minister.
Minister, you'll understand that this is a part of my performance contract. And so, as much as your wish is that I be very short, but I also understand which side my bread is buttered. Program Director, thank you very much for your contribution thus far. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, I think Professor Mbati has made my job very easy. Thank you very much for that. Each time I have the singular honor of introducing the minister, it's a special occasion because if you go back and you are in education, and you look into where we come from, and you understand the struggles for freedom in our country and his singular contribution to the liberation of our country, particularly in the area of education, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. Recently, ladies and gentlemen, the South African Communist Party had a Congress, and he emerged as the 8th national chairperson of the South African Communist Party. Please join me in congratulating the minister. Those who are not in politics and may not know much about this political party, this is the longest, or this is the vanguard party of the working people of South Africa and the poor. May I just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that the central committees of the South African Communist Party once had stalwarts like Jeremy Cronin, Ruth First, Mac Maharaj, Nelson Mandela, Governor Mbeki, Raymond Mhlaba, Thabo Mbeki, Joe Slovo, Yusuf Dadu, and the list goes on. And by so saying, you recognize the significance of a department or the higher education and science and innovation system that is led by a minister of that caliber. He was the 13th General Secretary of the Communist Party, and if I can just remind you that previous General Secretaries of the Communist Party included Albert Nzula, J.B. Marx, Edwin Thabo Mfutsanyana, Moses Kotana, Moses Mapida. And amongst all the General Secretaries of the Communist Party, he's the longest serving, and almost 24 years as the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party, and I think in the history of the liberation of our people, his name is going to live long. The Minister of Higher Education in South Africa is a scholar. He's very passionate about the issues of violence, and I think his contribution, particularly the impact of political violence on schooling, contributed a lot in stabilizing schooling in South Africa. Those who come from the part of the province, in KZN in particular, remember what used to be called the 7 Days War, where about 100 people perished and more than 300,000 were displaced. And so you will understand the passion of our minister about stability of the education and training system, and therefore translating into the program that we are launching today in honor of our first Minister of Education, Professor Bengu. The portfolio of our minister that he presides over includes the National Research Foundation, the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, sector education and training authorities, technology innovation agencies, the National Skills Funds as crucial funding agencies driving the new higher education, science and innovation landscape, amongst other responsibility of our minister. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request you kindly to stand as we welcome our minister. Normally when I introduce the minister in this province, there's a lot of noise that the people make as he comes forward to just show how we appreciate his leadership in South Africa. The Minister of Education. Yeah. You can do better than that, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, DG, Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi. Well, I'm glad that you are leaving all the issue of our performance agreement to my discretion now. And Sibongile in your office is chasing me. When am I doing it? I was waiting for this occasion, so that then thereafter I'm going to carefully think what do I add or subtract from the performance agreement. Thank you very much, Dr. Sishi, for your very kind words of introduction. Let me start by introducing our distinguished guest of honor, Professor Sibusiso Bengu. Bulos. No mama. Wekhaya, Umam Bengu, and the rest of the Bengu family who are here. I have already greeted, let me do so again, our DG, Dr. Sishi, and also the Deputy Director General in the Department of Science and Innovation, Mr. Imran Patel, who is here representing the DG of the Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Mjwaha. Let me also greet all the Deputy Directors General who are here of the Department of Higher Education and Training, the members of the National Steering Committee of the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program. Let me also greet the chairs of our university councils who are here, Professor Mbati, and all the vice chancellors present, including also, I've seen some DVCs who are here, and other senior managers of our universities, and especially our HDIs. The CEOs of our partner entities who are here, Yusuf, I'm told, is representing our vice chancellors. The National Institute of Humanities and Social Sciences, Professor Muswetsa, I've been told that she's around, and the CHE and all our other institutions. Let me also greet Pumelele, my wife, who was, by the way, the head girl of Dlangezo High School when Professor Bengu was the principal. And the head boy was the late Bodloza Nzimande at that time. I'm very glad that you could join me so that we further celebrate your very special headmaster. Let me also greet members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Since everybody is quoting, I must just admit I've got two quotes that keep me going all the time. And they are relevant irrespective of the occasion you are at. The first one, I love it. It always seems impossible until it is done. There's our first president of a democratic South Africa who appointed you, Ngolosi, as his first minister of education in 1994. My second quotation is inscribed in one particular grave in London, in Highgate Cemetery. It says, philosophers have interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. That's Karl Marx. I wish I could adjust it that philosophers have interpreted the challenges facing HDIs in various ways. The point, however, is to change the HDIs. So these quotations, they fit basically everywhere. Let me also take this opportunity to sincerely thank and express my gratitude to Professor Bengu and his family, firstly for accepting that we name this program after him and for being here with us on this very special occasion. I really feel honored. My gratitude also goes to Professor Bengu. As I have said, for taking the risk of his name being used in this program. When I visited him just before COVID with Uma at his home, when I requested him to accept this, he said he's greatly, greatly honored to accept it. But then he said to me, but make sure the program does not fail. which is correct. And Prof, we want to assure you that this program won't fail. Firstly, it's part of our Department of Higher Education budget. We don't go and beg from outside. It's embedded in our budget. It's in our medium-term expenditure framework in terms of government language, the next 3 years, and I'm sure we'll have it beyond that. Of course, the challenge is for all of us, Professor Mbati and your colleagues, to make sure that indeed this program. What is nice, though, is that we are not coming here to say we are going to start the program. We decided to rename it after you. It's a project that has already started, so it's got deliverables already. And those deliverables will be attributed now to the Sibusiso Bengu Development Program. Now, I must just say this, that maybe there were 3 main reasons why immediately we named this program after Professor Bengu. The first one is the first Minister of Education in a democratic South Africa. But number 2, he was Vice Chancellor of Forte and HDI. And thirdly, in today's language, he was my Dean of Students at the University of Zululand in 1977. Now, I must say this, that those days, Professor Mtose, we used to have to pay our fees in 3 installments. It was 400 and something rands in 1977, including tuition, accommodation, and food. But September that year, I was short of 100 rand for my last installment. And I was really faced with the prospects of leaving university. In fact, I had convinced myself, even told my mother, who, by the way, was paying for me those days through Omashonisa. And she couldn't go and borrow more from Omashonisa because she was owing a lot. Then we got a message that all those students who do not have money but think they are doing well, they must go to the office of the dean. I remember very well going into the office, meeting with Professor Bengu, and asking me what my challenge is. I said, Prof, I'm owing 100 rands. He gave me a loan of 100 rands. You see the origins of NSFAS, eh? He gave me a loan of 100 rand, which I paid back when I was working. I did pay it back. Yes, when I was working. Now, in other words, without him, I think he went on his own to ask the churches and other generous donors to donate so that he could assist poor students from University of Zululand who were doing well. I would not have had a university degree without that 100 rand that I was given by Professor Bengu. Now, this new name now signifies Professor Bengu's legacy and his illustrious contribution towards the post-school education and training system in South Africa. It is Professor Bengu's proposals that in 2005 served as the genesis of our transformation journey in the higher education system. Unlike the fragmented, inefficient, and inequitable higher education system of the apartheid era, our country now boasts of a single national and coordinated PSET system that is open to all. As it has been said, Professor Bengu laid a very, very important foundation for that. I remember very well, Prof, the first, I must say this. I was his portfolio committee chair in Parliament, as it has been said. And I was telling my staff, you calling me your minister, there is my minister. And he's still my minister even today. You will never stop being my minister, Prof. The first piece of legislation we passed, and the opposition was totally opposed to it, was the National Education Policy Act in 1995. The purpose of that legislation, it's still there, Tandy, was to ensure that national education policy framework is led from the center by the national minister. And remember, at that time, we were faced with integrating 19 departments of education under apartheid. That's what we were faced with as our immediate task. And we said we can't merge these two unless we drive the transformation from the center. The opposition walked out of my portfolio committee when we were finalizing the bill, and there were cameras there that they had already organized. Then after talking to the opposition, the media, then they came to me and said, yeah, Nzimande, what are you going to do now? All the opposition parties have walked away. I said, we have enough majority as the ANC in the portfolio committee. We will pass this bill, and we actually did pass that bill. Bill drafted by Professor Bengu in the department, which laid the basis for us that today we are talking of a single education system in our country. Enrollments have increased significantly, and through the establishment and expansion of the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, poor students now have much expanded opportunities to access and participate in the post-school education and training sector. University research outputs have increased significantly, Prof., and several of our universities are internationally recognized as citadels of excellence. The principles that underpinned our funding framework for universities foregrounds transformation as a central pillar of its framework, and is amongst the many contributions by Professor Bengu to ensure that we truly transform our entire university system, but in particular, the historically disadvantaged universities. And Prof, we don't want HDIs to mimic other institutions. We want to be themselves, with their own personalities, with their own priorities, with their own areas of excellence that will contribute to knowledge domestically and globally. It's very important that that is at the heart of the Sibusiso Bengu development program. Ngolos ngaphandle kokubonisa igalelo lakhe elikhulu umlando wezemfundo eNingizimu Afrika kungaba uphelelanga uma singayibali indima oyidlalile kwezemfundo kulelizwe lakithi. Today, on behalf of our government and the people of South Africa, I want to thank you so much and say that we are indeed honored for accepting this. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps it is important for me to give a brief historical background in our journey in the transformation of our historically disadvantaged institutions. These were universities which were established as non-white universities, following the recommendations of the Aiselen Commission, the Apartheid Aiselen Commission in 1959, which specifically prohibited racially integrated higher education. But look how smart apartheid thought it was. When it designated universities as black universities, the act was called Extension of University Education Act. As if it's something good, it's extending university education. But in fact, it was racially defining it. One day I'll tell this story, as I understand it, of the evolution of our HDIs. I don't have time, but these institutions, at that time, most of them were established in 1960, after the passage of this legislation. University of Zululand, TEFLUOP as Limpopo University was known then, and Fort Hare, which had been established in 1910 or 1911, but was then changed to become a black university. Now, if you were a black South African, for younger members who may be here, an African at that time, you could only go to one of the three universities. If you were Zulu or Swati or Ndebele, you go to University of Zululand. If you were Xhosa speaking, you go to Fort Hare. If you were then Pedi, Tswana, Musutu, Venda, or Tsonga, you go to TEFLUOP. That is why all of us, you can almost tell who are university graduates at that time. Which university? You don't have to ask which university you went to. That's why I was given 100 rand by Professor Bengu at University of Zululand. By the way, I left a university which was 10 kilometers away from home, University of Natal in Pietermaritzburg. I was not accepted, and I had to drive more than 300 kilometers from Pietermaritzburg to KwaDlangezo to find a university. It's interesting, though, the history of this Sibusiso Bengu development program, because the origins of it is that I had requested a Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, at the time, before he came back to government, to look at funding and financing of university education in our country. He's now our president. I didn't know that. So I'm a very entitled minister who had a president to do a task for him, you know? Though he wasn't president at that time. And one of the recommendations that he came back with was that we need to have dedicated attention to HDIs if we are to transform university education in this country. It came from that report of now President Cyril Ramaphosa. And of course, we identified 8 of these institutions: University of Fort Hare, University of Limpopo, University of Venda, Walter Sisulu University, the University of the Western Cape, University of Zululand, Mangosuthu University of Technology, and Sfako Mahato Health Sciences University. Now, the funding review established that the needs of individual universities far exceeded the resources that are available, and in many respects, it was the predominantly historically disadvantaged institutions which received lesser resources historically than their counterparts and were mostly located in the least developed geographical parts of our country, which were also not meant for development. It is still my dream that one day, Professor Mtose, KwaDlangezo will become a town and grow to become a town, just like the area around Sfako Mahato University, just like University of the North. That Umtata will change and grow even faster because it's got. You can mention all where our HDIs is. There is absolutely no reason, except for historical reasons of apartheid, that Grahamstown was born out of Rhodes University, and that Stellenbosch was largely born out of Stellenbosch University. Hatfield in Pretoria is born out of Tekkies, and Rondebosch has grown because of UCT. But where there were black universities in Mankweng, in Limpopo, there is no such growth. One of the things, Prof, that we wish the Sibusiso Bengu development program will lead to is birth of new towns and cities around these universities. The president said this was his wish, our universities. In fact, where there is a university, there is usually towns that emerge, and we must make sure. HDIs are not financially well off. We know that. That is why we are doing what we are doing, that they also face unique challenges. They also are responsible for students who come from the poorest backgrounds, rural areas, many of whom don't even know what a mouse is. They think it's a rat when it's talking about a mouse of the computer, and literally have not seen that. We still have that today. So these are universities at the same time, by the way, that produced, in other words, they sort of subverted the apartheid agenda, these universities, also in many respects. Because from these universities came out some of our distinguished leaders. From Fort Hare, President Nelson Mandela, though he never finished his degree there, Yusuf Lule of Uganda, Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, Nsumo Khetle of Lesotho, Seretse Khama of Botswana, and indeed our own honorary guest, Professor Bengu, who also became the Vice Chancellor of Fort Hare. From University of Limpopo emerged our very own president, though he never finished, Cyril Ramaphosa, Frank Chikane, and others. And from UniZulu, some chief justices who came out of there, former Deputy Minister Hlengiwe Mkhize, Mxolisi Nxasane, Sibongile Khumalo, Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. We can mention many. By the way, University of Zululand, Professor Mtose, I remember in our time, it had one of the best music schools under Professor Khabi Mngoma in the country, and excellence in teaching of African languages as well. If you go to all our HDIs, they each had their own niche areas, even at that time. This was subversion of apartheid because we were not supposed to produce leaders of this caliber from our institutions. One can only imagine that were these institutions in a different space and differently capacitated, how many more leaders, scientists, intellectuals, academics they would have produced? Our department has noted with great concern the enormous challenges that are still faced with our HDIs, even at this time, almost 30 years after our democratic transition. Of course, part of assisting our HDIs is also to build capacity in a variety of areas. And we do this by not telling HDIs what to do and in what areas, by engaging them and say, in terms of your own potential strengths, where would you like to develop? And then we support that. We don't impose it from above. Although we hold them very tight accountability to say, how are you spending the Sibusiso Bengu development grant? Because we do want to see progress. The Sibusiso Bengu development program will work on high-level priority areas, proceeding from the premise that if these priorities are decisively addressed, multiple secondary and tertiary issues will then also be addressed. In other words, the Sibusiso Bengu development program is a catalyst. We want to position it as a catalyst to transform these institutions into something that they would like themselves to be. There are a range of other cross-cutting imperatives that our HDIs should also be responding to. Just to mention some: decolonization in higher education, indigenous knowledge systems, the fourth industrial revolution, blended learning using contact and online, entrepreneurship development, environmental sustainability, strengthening and playing a critical role in our national system of innovation, including research development. Let me just highlight very quickly some of the most critical strategic priorities that the Sibusiso Bengu development program will be prioritizing. As again, this emerges from our engagement with the institutions, not imposed from above. The program will establish, strengthen, and capacitate institutional management and governance structures, systems, and processes, including student governance. The Sibusiso Bengu development program will also improve teaching infrastructure, research infrastructure, student housing, information and communications technology and digital infrastructure, as well as sports infrastructure. The program will enhance student experience through a focus on student life and student success and creation of safe learning environments. The program will also enable effective staff recruitment, retention, and progression, including through improving staff qualifications, creating a supportive staff environment, having attractive and reasonable working conditions, and providing effective teaching, research, and professional development opportunities for staff. The Sibusiso Bengu program will also ensure responsive qualifications, programs, and curricula that are awarded, as well as streamlined project quality management systems that reflect each university's individual identity and the role it plays or it seeks to play, as Professor Mbati was saying, in a differentiated higher education system. This program will also identify and develop research focus areas that characterize the identity and aspirations of each institution and build innovation and technology transfer capacity that enables the research to impact on society, industry, and the economy. You know, our HDIs have been lucky that the president decided to bring together higher education and science and innovation under one minister. So now I've got 2 DGs, right, that I simply direct and say, Sish, from this angle, you fund an infrastructure, then I say, Mjwaka, fund research programs and science programs, and they work together. That is a huge advantage, by the way, that we have. So this Sibusiso Bengu a development program, much as it is driven by Department of Higher Education and Training, it is also the program of the Department of Science and Innovation. They must all work together because we want also these universities to produce cutting-edge science and innovation. On resourcing this program, the main resource for this program, as I have said, is an annual earmarked grant from our budget as the department. Not from some chancing somewhere, go begging. No, we may beg in future because we are not rich, but it must always have core funds to actually drive the program. As I have said, this is replacing now the HDI development grant, which was approved in 2013, so as to enable our 8 designated universities to address historic challenges and build their own strong development trajectory going forward. Since the introduction of the HDI development grant, which we are now calling the Sibusiso Bengu development grant, in 2016, the department had made a total of 1.87 billion rand available for investment in HDIs. So, Prof, you can rest easily at night because this is money that we have put aside that is actually being spent under the Sibusiso Bengu's development program, which has been available. And now, this year, this current financial cycle, we are transferring over 390 million rands, just this financial year, to this program, so that it leaves. The overall purpose of these funds is to put in place systems and mechanisms to develop and show the sustainability of the institutions through healthy state of finances and the other issues that areas that I have already outlined. I have no doubt that our HDIs will ensure that they use this grant and program as a propeller to greater heights in honor of their illustrious alumni. You know what I like about today? We are naming this and honoring Professor Bengu whilst he's still alive, being with us. Now, this puts heavy responsibility on the shoulders of our VCs, of our 8 vice chancellors, because you are not talking about someone who once existed. You are here today as we are launching it. There is Professor Bengu in flesh. Okay? So there's a heavy responsibility on your shoulders that we make sure that this becomes a success. It is also important that whilst we do not have adequate levels of funding as government, but we need to be creative on how then even the rest of your own funding begins to support the identity that you want to build for yourselves as HDIs. That's why, despite some people opposing this, I have decided, and Tandi, before Marcia came, I'm glad you were supporting me on this. Prof, I want to tell you also that we will be building a new campus of the University of Zululand in Ulundi. Which will focus on teacher education. UDG kuyazi. I've said kuSish, where Sish, bebengilethela enye into la ukuthi ngiyi-approve nemali. Nangu no Prit, our CFO. Ngayiphinisela emuva ngathi no, angiboni iphi campus yasongoye kule mali nifakephi. We are also going to be building a new campus which possibly will be under TUT in Guyana in Limpopo. We have to expand university education unapologetically to rural areas. Ngakanona intombi yasemakhaya. So ninenkinga-ke ngalokho because mina, much as I am an urban boy, she made me to understand the challenge of rural development. And often, when you make such an investment in rural areas, you see the difference often much quicker. Ngoba ingane zasemakhaya kusheshe kubonakala uma seyifundile. Angisho ukuthi zasemadolobheni injani njalo. Ningangibeki icala. Now, another important development to note is that both my departments, as I have said, have embarked on a strategy to assist the HDIs in increasing their research capacity through bilateral and multilateral engagements. Now, we have also, as government, committed ourselves to strengthen and develop our post-school education and training sector by investing in infrastructure to provide quality teaching, learning, and research and innovation. Over the past 10 years, we have strengthened our investment in infrastructure projects across our 26 universities by investing a total of 21.2 billion rands over the last 10 years to infrastructure, of which 7.6 billion, which is 37.4%, was dedicated and earmarked for infrastructure in our HDIs. I am unapologetically being biased towards more infrastructure for HDIs, and I'm not going to apologize for that. I'm not discriminating, I'm making a historical correction. Because students who study in Durban at UKZN, Howard College, or in Braamfontein at Wits, have got better chances of finding better accommodation assisted by NSFAS. Where do you find that eMankweng or Redlangezo? Even in Umtata for that matter. So even student accommodation, we are prioritizing HDIs. Not that the other students, we are neglecting them. Now, the last area that I would just like, last two areas I would like to touch on in a summarized way. Ishmael, you spend sleepless nights drafting my speeches and then you blame me and say, the minister just doesn't read. At least uMadlamini wangisa esikoleni wangifundisa lento okuthiwa ukusummarize. Masisikhathi siphele. We have as a department, Professor Bengu, a program which we call Staffing South Africa's Universities Framework, which we will continue to support our universities for purposes of staff development. One of the things we want to do is to increase the number of academics with PhDs in our university system. And the HDIs have far less PhDs than the other universities, and we must correct that and fund more PhDs. I'm glad because I've got full support from our president. Now the president says, yeah, Zimande, I was approving you, because by the way, you can't leave the country without the president. President must give you permission. Yeah, I see you have been traveling a lot. And he said, after your SACP Congress, I would like to meet with you. I want to know how many PhD scholarships have you come back with. He's very passionate about that. I want more and more PhD scholarships from all over the world. Countries that are wishing to support us, tell them we want PhD scholarships so that we send South African students all over the world. And there's a huge advantage in that because they come back with experiences from different parts of the world. It enriches our country, it enriches our system and all that. I must also say that there's this study that we undertook for all our universities on the selection, recruitment, promotion, and retention of black academics in South African universities who are South African. We are taking that to Cabinet now, to inform Cabinet. We're going to be releasing that for public discussion. Now, we must be understood. We are not saying our system, Prof, doesn't need academics who come from outside South Africa. Every higher education system is enriched by having people who come from outside your country to be part of our system. We do have them. But what we are then saying is that we need to strike a balance, though, that at the moment there's too much complaint that the system tends to disadvantage South African, because sometimes you can easily recruit ready-made graduates from outside South Africa. We need a balance between the two in order to actually have a good system, especially black women academics with PhDs who are South African. All of these programs, which are university-wide, will also assist our HDIs greatly. Now, I visited the United States, Tandy, with Dai. I can't remember when was that. 7 years ago, maybe? 5 years ago. We have a partnership with some universities in the United States, with South African universities. By the way, we have an offer from the United Nations Development Program for a partnership between our HDIs and former black universities in the United States, which we need to cement. So I came across an interesting idea in the US. Not everything is bad, by the way, in the United States. You know, they had Donald Trump, but there are other positive things as well. They've got this concept of anchor institutions. Institutions that anchor themselves in the environment in which they are located, and they become a catalyst for change. University of Zululand as an anchor institution in the growing Empangeni Richards Bay area. And we want our HDIs to be anchor institutions where they are located. They are part of development. With the district development model, if our universities can link up with that, the president is saying, Zimande, we are proud that we are putting a new system of water system at Fort Hare in Alice. But have you considered how much money and what other programs are there from the rest of government that are supporting development in the area so that those things are aligned? So that's very important, that our HDIs really link up with our district development model. In conclusion, I wish all our designated institutions success, and from our side as a department, we look forward to continuing working with you in making sure that we have sustainable universities and campuses with strong individual identities, responsive to the local context, but respected globally. I thank you for all your contribution in ensuring that the purpose of this grant is realized. Once more to the Bengu family, Nina Bongolos. The sector is indebted to the contribution of Professor Bengu, as he remains an inspiration to many of us. Thank you once again for allowing this post-school education and training sector to honor you and use your name, Prof. Your tenacity and leadership remains an indelible component of history and our conscience. Let me end by also thanking our DG and your team for being committed to this program. And also DG for understanding that this is a very important dimension of my performance agreement with my senior management. If I don't see Sibusiso Bengu development grant somewhere, I'll kick dust. Thank you very much.
There's these problems of adjustments, but we want to say, Minister, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in expressing our appreciation for that excellent tribute. I wish to actually share with you, I approached, I shan't mention her name, but she is a very senior official. What is my role after Minister has spoken? And she said, after Minister has spoken, you say nothing more. But I want to say to all of you, and really express my deepest, deepest appreciation that you have scheduled time to be with us here to honor, and I want to add to all the accolades, Professor Bengu, the most remarkable leader in our country. You have truly set a standard, I think, for our minister, for all of us present here, a standard of compassion for all the children, generations to come, who await to experience one thing, and that is learning so that they can one day apply and experience what their potential can do for this country. So thank you so much to all of you. Thank you to the staff who made this event possible. Your hard work, I think, has been acknowledged, but can we please, ladies and gentlemen, acknowledge their hard work? I want to express profound gratitude to the Bengu family, Mayor Bengu, for summoning your children to join us here today. We are truly appreciative. Nothing happens without women. I want to thank all the vice-chancellors. Without your presence here, the stature would not have been the same. Thank you so much for your continued dedication to the councils, chairpersons, thank you too for all the support that you show to the DDGs in the department. Thank you too for your support and appreciation for this program. I know DDG Gaza, I'm going to come begging to you so that we have consensus on the infrastructure funds, and I know Professor Mbati is looking at me with a very steely eye. But thank you to all the DGGs, and thank you too to the CFO. And ladies and gentlemen, I must also thank the advocate Kuta. She makes a remarkable difference to the legal input to all our discussions of the HDIs. I wish to thank you, colleagues. If I have omitted your name, please do not be offended. I must thank the media. Thank you so much for supporting this, and Ishmael will tell you, I was unapologetic that this occasion must be recorded in our archives. We have to start appreciating all the talent in our country. So thank you so much. We are looking forward to the engagements that you will have subsequently. I know 3 individuals have been advised on the engagements with yourselves, and our team will direct you to the podiums where you will have your briefings. So thank you, colleagues, to everyone. I hope you will enjoy lunch, and I certainly hope you'll enjoy the ambience. Thank you so much to our dear Minister, to our DG. Without you, this event would certainly not have taken place. We are so privileged to be subjects in your department. So, to the caretakers, please feel free, and I know there are 2 briefings. The 2 vice-chancellors know who they are. May I just request that you please wear your mask for your briefings with Professor Bengu, and we will proceed to enjoy lunch. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen.